Good morning. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. It is Sunday, June 6th. It's about 11:11 a.m. in the morning, and we just got a massive bombshell of news. Ian Rappaport reporting here. The Atlanta Falcons are trading all-pro wide receiver Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for at least a second-round pick, a blockbuster for Tennessee. And this is a huge deal because we know Julio Jones has been rumored to be on the move very soon. It finally happened today. And the Tennessee Titans had been, especially AJ Brown, they have been trying to recruit Julio for the last week or so. So this is huge news for Tennessee. It's also huge news for Atlanta. We should have been baking into our Atlanta projections that Julio would not be with the team. So now that's all guaranteed. I think for this video, I'm just going to cover basically what I'm thinking Julio Jones's fantasy value is with Tennessee. We're also going to see what this does to my other Tennessee projections and basically what are we looking at with the Titans offense with Julio Jones. So we're going to start here basically just with some history. This is where the Tennessee Titans receivers were last year in fantasy. This is full PPR. You see AJ Brown was the wide receiver 14 in PPR leagues. He still went over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns in just 14 games, and he had a bum ankle that he had surgery on. So AJ Brown, this is good for him. He still gets someone else to help, relieve coverage off of him. I think he's still going to be a wide receiver one this season. So continue drafting AJ Brown. He might even go on a discount now that people are excited about Julio being there. But I love AJ Brown. Continue to draft AJ Brown. And then you see down here, Corey Davis was wide receiver 29. He played in 14 games as well. 92 targets, 65 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So last season, Ryan Tannehill was able to support almost a wide receiver 1 in AJ Brown when he played, and then a wide receiver 2, 3, kind of a wide receiver, top 30 wide receiver in Corey Davis. So Julio is landing into a really fun spot. And then we see last season, Ryan Tannehill, let's filter here by ESPN. Ryan Tannehill was quarterback number 8. He threw for 33 touchdowns, rushed for 266 yards, and he rushed for 7 touchdowns. So Ryan Tannehill, this is just losing Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith in the offseason. People probably were moving Ryan Tannehill down their board to like a fringe quarterback one, somewhere in that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 range. But now this might even boost him back into the top 12 of people's rankings now that he gets to throw to AJ Brown, Julio Jones, and then I guess Anthony Firkser is going to be the tight end this season. So those are going to be the primary weapons. This shouldn't affect Derrick Henry or anything at all. If anything, it just makes Tennessee's offense a little bit better. So what I'm going to do here is this is my 2021 projections document, which it's available for purchase on thefantasyfellowship.com. Just go to the link in the description below. You can purchase the 2021 draft kit here. And then once you get into that, you can access the projections document here. I got all my rankings and a bunch of other things for you guys to check out. So check that out if you're interested in looking at this document. What's cool about this document is it's a real-time live Google Sheet. So once I update these, you guys see them too when you open up the link. So again, here is my Tennessee Titans page. Let me just do one more zoom or two here. So I do have AJ Brown being the leading receiver. And then just keep in mind, last season, he played only 14 games, and he still had, what did he have? 106 targets. So I was already baking in a huge season for AJ Brown with 17 games. He's looking at, in my projections, 89 catches on 131 targets, almost 1,365 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Now, keep in mind, he caught 11 last season in just 14 games on a bum ankle. I think that these numbers are actually pretty modest and kind of like a floor for AJ Brown if he plays a full 16 or 17 game season. So continue drafting AJ Brown. Like I said, he's in for a massive season. And then what do we do with Julio Jones here? Now, again, this trade literally just happened 10 minutes ago. So this is just the first preliminary numbers that I have plugged in for Julio Jones. And then just kind of going off of what we had last year with Corey Davis. Corey Davis himself played in 14 games. He caught 65 receptions on 92 targets and 984 yards, 5 touchdowns here. So what do I have for Julio? I kind of plugged him in for something similar, maybe just a little bit more targets. I have him at 101 targets, 66 catches, 920 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So that we'll take a look and see where he ranks in my rankings. But keep in mind, Julio Jones, how many games has he played the last handful of seasons? He ends up missing a couple games every now and then. Let's type in Julio Jones FF today. And we'll look at how many games he's been playing the last few seasons. So last year he only played 9. The year before he missed a game with 15. So I think it's malpractice to project him for a full 16 or 17 game season. So with my numbers, that's why they probably seem a little bit low. But man, if we get a full season out of Julio Jones, he's looking like a really nice value in drafts right now. So again, he's got 66 catches, 101 targets, 920 yards and 6 touchdowns. The next best receiving weapon will be Anthony Berkster, who I have going for 61 catches, 81 targets, 645 yards, and 6 touchdowns himself. At the end of the day, though, Ryan Tannehill, he's going to be the guy that helps feed all of these wide receivers and tight ends. I have him throwing for just over 4,000 yards, about 30 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. So I kind of have him regressing in touchdowns just by a few. I could willingly add a few more. It really depends. Julio Jones hasn't really been a big touchdown playmaker for the Falcons, but I like the number for 6. That's one more than Corey Davis had last season. Corey Davis was a deep threat. He was at 15.1 yards per catch last season. I am kind of low on Julio, so I could add more yards here, and I think I might actually end up doing that. I'll kind of shuffle some things around here. So let's go to the wide receiver tab. And again, in this projection document, I don't know if you can see on the bottom here, but I have everyone's team tab that all filters back to these position tabs here. So at wide receiver, before the trade, I had A.J. Brown as like the number 4 wide receiver. I bumped him down just a little bit because I had to move some targets to Julio. I think I had A.J. Brown in the 140s for targets, but he gets bumped down to wide receiver 7 now. I think that's fair value in the second round of drafts. Let me zoom out just a second here so we can see the full scope of the PPR points. So he's wide receiver 7 for me. And if we come down here, again, I still have to tinker with these numbers, but my floor projection for Julio Jones is basically wide receiver 37. And to be honest, he could end up easily as a top 30 wide receiver. He could be a top 24 wide receiver. It really depends on how many games. So there's going to be some risk with Julio Jones. It's going to take a little bit for him to get acclimated with Ryan Tannehill. But we got the whole, training camp in the summer preseason to get things rolling. So how I go about drafting Julio Jones right now, in my mind, I'm going to kind of think of him as a wide receiver 3 with upside. It really depends on where he's being drafted. I'm not sure. We can go look at some Fantasy Pros or something ADP. Let's take a look at that real quick. But if you can get Julio Jones on your team as your wide receiver 3, there's probably going to be a lot of wide receiver 1 games, a lot of wide receiver 2 games. But let's just take a look at this average. This is 2020. Let me actually go to 2021 draft rankings. And let's look at the wide receiver rankings. So they had A.J. Brown up as their wide receiver 3. They did have Julio Jones as their wide receiver 14. That's going to need to change. Let me see if we go to consensus ADP. So we'll just keep on scrolling down here. I don't think that's correct. Julio Jones all the way up here. This is 2020. How do you see 2021? Let's click on that. So we're scrolling on down here looking for Julio Jones. He is going as 35th player off the board right now for Fantasy Pros. I think he's probably going to be somewhere in that 3rd, 4th round range. So to me, I'm probably still not excited about drafting Julio Jones here. I'd rather have Amari Cooper, someone that's going to be the clear number 1 guy on the team for targets, maybe even, not Kenny Golladay, but there's Godwin and there's Cooper and DJ Moore and things like that. So I'm probably waiting for Julio Jones to fall into the 4th round. That's likely where I'm going to want to get him. But again, the biggest question is with health. If we just kind of shuffle some things around here, even if I take some targets off the top of Julio Jones here, or for A.J. Brown, say we do that a little bit, and we just kind of duck down to 126, and we'll add the 5 here. For Julio Jones, we'll come down in receptions a little bit for AJ, and we'll come up in receptions for Julio just a little bit. We'll shuffle some yards around too here. We'll go with 13-15. That's still 15.3 yards per catch. And if we go 970 for Julio, that gets his numbers up just a little bit here. And say we want it to be crazy, and let's just throw Julio another touchdown. So that puts him at 69 catches, 970 yards, and 7 touchdowns. If we go back here to the wide receiver tab and we'll filter this, let's see where that moved Julio up to. So that puts Julio at wide receiver 27. So he's going to, to me, he's going to be a fringe top 25 receiver. He's going to look best again as your wide receiver 3, I think, though. But he could return some wide receiver 2 value. So continue drafting your Tennessee Titans players. Again, this is going to actually make me like Ryan Tannehill probably just a little bit more. He comes in at quarterback number 11 for me. And before the news, he was kind of sitting at 13, 14. So it did boost him up just a little bit. I think he's a quarterback 1 this season again. And then as far as tight ends with Anthony Firkser, I had high hopes for Firkser. He was my tight end number 11. He's going to drop out of the top 12. He's probably going to be a fringe tight end 1 this season. So that's going to do it, I think, for this Julio Jones update. Again, traded to the Titans for a second-round pick. I would hope they can get a little bit more from that. I would assume Tennessee Titans are going to be a playoff team again this year, which means that's going to be a late second. So hopefully Atlanta's able to get something a little bit more than that. But you got to like it for both sides. If I want to show you guys my Atlanta Falcons projections real quick, I already had Julio off the team. It's going to be all about Calvin Ridley. Russell Gage will be kind of the second or third leading target. And big season coming up for Kyle Pitts. Where's Kyle Pitts here? Up here. So in terms of pecking order in Atlanta, it's going to be Ridley, it's going to be Pitts, and Russell Gage. Those guys all are probably going over 100 targets this season. And Calvin Ridley is going to be a lot of fun this year, all by himself with that target share. So thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, leave me some comments on what you guys think of this Julio Jones trade. Where do you see him going in your draft plans? Is he a 3rd or 4th round pick for you? Do you think he's a lock fire, running wide receiver 2? Or do you agree with me that I think he's going to be best as your wide receiver 3, but he's probably going to finish somewhere in that top 25, top 30, somewhere in there. So thank you again for your time. We'll see you guys in another video. Thanks. Peace.